Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you might be, and welcome to another Choose Africa Tuesday. Advisors, if you want to ask any questions, please pop them in the questions box, and at the end of the webinar we'll look at those questions, and hopefully between the two of us we'll be able to answer them. As I said, Graham is joining us today all the way from Vic Falls, and we are going to chat about two countries tonight, Zambia and Zimbabwe, and we're going to look at two different lodges in Zambia and then two different lodges in Zimbabwe, four different national parks. So we're going to have a quick tour around Zambia and Zimbabwe, and I like to think of Zambia as wild and unspoilt. I imagine it's a little bit Zambia to be like Botswana would have been, I'd say 30 or 40 years ago. And then just a bit of housekeeping. Please remember that advisors, you need to register for each and every module. Otherwise, you won't get the reminder. So let's start. Zambia, 3 camps, 44 beds, and we are going to start in a little town called Livingston and Toka Leya. Graham, can you, as I go through the slides, can you just talk us through the Toka Leya? But first, I am going to show a little video of our wonderful Toka Leya and Victoria Falls.
We're at Toka Leya Lodge, and we are situated about 10-15 minutes away from the mighty Victoria Falls.
This beautiful lodge is in one of the small national parks in Zambia called Mos Otunya National Park, which is about 66 square kilometers. Famous for mainly 3 of the big 5 elephants, rhinos and buffalo.
So when we came in to build Toka Leya, we made sure that we preserved everything as it was. So the lodge is built around the bushes and the trees. You also find a lot of bird life, good sightings of wildlife. You see a lot of antelopes throughout the year, bushbacks especially. You always have chances of seeing crocodiles swimming by. Hippos coming out in the evening as they forage. During the dry season, the river attracts a lot more, including other animals like elephants, giraffe, zebra, buffalo. One section of the lodge is in a wooded area. People that are interested in bird life and so on will actually like the most. There's a lot of big trees that provide shade, and of course you have people that love the sun. The other section of the lodge actually expands in that section where you have 8 rooms that are overlooking the mighty Zambezi River with huge open frontage where you are able to see clearly the river as well as the wildlife that comes through to drink.
All the rooms have got a river front, so in summer when it gets warm we get this nice breeze that comes through from the river, which is so refreshing. Toka Leya has got a lot to offer. We've got a nice gym facing the river, and also got a spa. We can enjoy the different spa treatments that we offer at Toka Leya.
There are unique aspects of this tour that include, for example, a walking safari within a national park to meet and see endangered wild species of animals, specifically the white rhinos.
Our journey changed lives. Our journeys are memorable, so you have the most beautiful experience at Toka Leya.
On behalf of the Toka Leya family, I would like to welcome you to the mighty Zambezi River and Toka Leya Lodge, hoping that your stay with us will be a life-changing experience.
Graham, take us through Toka Leya, please, as I go through the slides.
No worries. Toka Leya, 12 tents right on the river. The thing that makes Toka Leya really special is that even though it's close to Livingstone, which is a well-settled area on the Zambezi, it's still in the national park. So you still are a guest name and not a guest number. So all your views, as we saw in the video there, with Amon and Stephen chatting to us, is that you're always looking onto the river, and the river does rise and fall. Sometimes there's lots of water in after the rainy season. Sometimes you can actually almost seem like you can walk across it to the other side. Remember, the Zambezi River is the border with Zimbabwe and Zambia. So beautiful rooms. The rooms are all closed off nicely with glass and air conditioning units, which is nice. Wi-Fi in the rooms, large enough that you can actually just spend your days there, but there is a large area as well in the front. Toka Leya is also one of those places where you can get your hands dirty, excuse the pun, as we like, worm farm at the back of house. They do a lot of tree planting, they do a lot of waste management, using the worms to degrade the fresh and the soft. And yeah, it is in the national park, so you've got access to walking safaris, you've got access to game drives. It is a small national park, as you did mention, so it's not something that you would want to go and see, leopard and lion and cheetah and wild dog. Toka Leya is generally a start, a middle, or an end of your safari. So yeah, definitely go and have game drives, spend a lot of time on the water. You can see some really cool animals like the sable antelope as well there, but it's not dense predators per se. Quite a small linear national park. And yeah, I got one of the easiest marketing tools in the world, the Victoria Falls, so you can access it from the Zimbabwe side and the Zambia side. Water levels are always up and down, so it does depend. You might see horrible news stories saying the falls are dry. The falls will never dry. It's just different times. Yeah, it's like saying there's no snow in a certain part of America. Maybe because it's summer, there's no snow, but when winter comes, there will be snow. So you have different levels. This is when it's at its peak. You can see how much water is flowing over there. So it does just change. As the rainy season ends, the water eventually starts to drop down a bit. When the rainy season picks up again, it'll get to massive flow again. The falls will never be dry.
And yeah, Graham, this is one of my photos from the Zambia side. And so, advisors often ask, which side is better. And I think it depends on the time of year. When it's in full flow, it's actually hard to see the falls at some of the places in Zimbabwe. Correct?
Yeah, spot on. So it's when it is dry months, so we're looking at, say, September, October, November. Zimbabwe does have a larger portion of the falls, so you can see a bit more of the falls. But when it's fully wet, then it's kind of the opposite, where the mist picks up. So I like seeing it from both sides of the coin, so to speak. You can always see a different perspective from it, but they're majestic. Doesn't matter which angle you're looking at it, they are spectacular.
Absolutely. So Toka Leya, from Toka Leya to in Livingstone Town, or near Livingstone Town, as GraGra mentioned, to Kafue National Park. And we have 2 lodges in Kafue National Park. Graham's going to chat through Shumba, but it was rather exciting, GraGra, because today we reopened, if you want to coin a phrase, Shumba today, to welcoming guests back after last year, obviously. And yeah, really exciting to be able to open the lodge and have guests come in again.
The Busanga Plains is one of my favorite places. I've been privileged enough to move around a lot of the wilderness lodges, whether I was working in them or just traveling through. And yeah, it's one of those places that just, it steals your soul. You get there, it's such a small amount of people in such a large area. So if you look at the plains themselves, they're a larger area than, say, the Sabi Sands, which maybe we're familiar with, but you've got the Sabi Sands, you've got about 24 lodges, each having over 20 in the plains you've got 4 lodges, and there's 3 vehicles in each lodge, so you've got maximum of 12 lodges in 600 odd square kilometers. So very exciting that we managed to get Shumba Camp open. It's one of my favorite places. Shumba means lion in different dialects, and as you can see why it's aptly named. When I was speaking to Petros, who's there getting the camp ready, because it's been closed for so long, he was saying that it's quite tricky for them in the mornings, and even because the lions are using the plains themselves, the camp themselves to look out into the plains, because it's on an island. We do offer hot air ballooning, which is great. This year we're not able to offer it, unfortunately, because we weren't sure with what COVID was doing, so we had to give them enough time, and unfortunately we didn't think we were going to open the planes, so we had to say to the balloon guys, no, they can take their machines elsewhere, but they are able to next year carry on. As the planes dry themselves, the water comes down towards the middle. It's almost like being in a large bathtub when you pull the plug, the water starts to recede in the middle, and then what happens is you get these lions that need to jump over these little, what do you call them, rivulets now, to cross, either to check their territory or find a nice cool shady place to sleep, or actually hunt. And so you actually are able to get them jumping over, which is quite special. And it's such an open space that the views are unobstructed, which makes photography really, really special there.
Yeah, it's the Busanga Plains, as you said, it's just the most stunning area, and also and that's why I think Zambia speaks to me for being wild and unspoilt, because there's just so few people there, and one of the really, really unique selling points. And now, GraGra, I want you to just share with us a little about the transfer from where we were, Shimba in Kafue National Park, if you can all see my cursor, to our next lodge, Mana Pools and Chiquena. And I like to think of particularly this transfer. It's going to be a travel day, what we would call a travel day in your client's itinerary, but it's adventurous and it's exciting and it's different. And just take us through that transfer, Graham.
So
I hope you can see our wilderness airplane here.
There it is there. So from the Kafue Plains, you jump into a wilderness airplane and you'd fly to Lusaka. It takes about an hour to a bit over an hour, depending on what machine they use, if it's a big caravan or if it's a Piper, Navajo. Just so it depends, but you work on about an hour and a half, gets to Lusaka, jump out at Lusaka. From Lusaka, then you jump into a bus, nice air-conditioned, comfortable bus, and you travel out of the capital city of Zambia and then down the escarpment. So the area around Lusaka is obviously quite high, and then as you go down towards the river, it drops down. So you've got a little bit of a windy travel, which is really nice and scenic. You get to the border post of Chirundu, which you'll cross over into Zimbabwe to access Mana Pools. Then you jump onto a boat, and the boat will then take you along the river, which is really special because now you've just done you've just done a trip through the mountains, and now you're on a boat, watching the hippos and the birds and stuff. And it's almost like if you pinch yourself and you say, this morning I woke up and I was driving through the Busanga Plains, and now I'm actually on this beautiful Zambezi River. I'm heading to the next lodge. It's effortless getting to such a different area.
Yeah, and obviously with wilderness safaris holding your hand, so clients don't have to worry about logistics or anything like that. And we just go back to that map. So as Graham said, the northern part of the map is Zambia, different country, to the southern part, Zimbabwe. And so Chirundu, Graham, it's border post, open, organized, no issues with crossing the border there.
No issues crossing the border there. The only thing, as we are in Corona times, obviously to cross the country, depending on your PCR tests. So
sure.
At this stage, we would actually recommend spending one night in Lusaka just to get your PCR test, and then you use that to cross over. Some amazing hotels, big hotel chains that are in Lusaka. So also going from the wilds of the Kafue, now you're in a little bit more of a brick and mortar hotel in Lusaka. Beautiful restaurants, lovely, friendly people, and then onwards to Zimbabwe the next day.
Sure. And that takes us to Mana Pools. And we have, how many lodges there? GraGra? 2. But if you can talk us through, 3 lodges. If you can talk us through this map and just share with advisors the difference between our lodges and other lodges that don't have private concessions?
Cool. So Mana Pool's beautiful national park. The word Mana actually means four, so it's based after four large pools that are found in the area. We are on the western front, so we've got two concessions. On the western front, we've got Rukomichi and Little Rukomichi, and on the eastern front, we've got Chiquena. So we kind of border the national park. Now, the neat thing is, because we've been around for a very long time in Zimbabwe, is that we managed to get these prime concessions. Why are they prime concessions? Well, first of all, our private concession is only for our vehicles. So we have our own airstrips, which is really neat. So you can land and within 15, 20 minutes, you're at your camp. Whereas if you look at the airstrip in the middle there, they won't see my mouse, but you can see the airplane right in the middle. So if you're going to any of the other camps, you kind of have to land there. Then it's quite a long drive to the riverfront. And then you've got to drive on a road where you have other vehicles coming left, right, and center. It's quite warm. A bit of Tetsi belts in that area as well. So not knocking the other camps, they are really special and beautiful, but they're not in a private area. So you can have self-drives from wherever driving up and down, passing you. If you do see a sighting, you will have other vehicles that are there. People could be doing a walking safari behind you. So it's just not private. So if we leave the Rukomichi concession, then we go to the eastern side. We've got the Chiquena concession, which is our latest concession in Zimbabwe. And yeah, same thing, private concession, airstrip there where you can land in within 10, 15 minutes from you in the camp itself. The neat thing about having a private concession and being on the edge as well, we are allowed to use motorboats on the river. So Rukomichi, for example, we've got 10 kilometers. So what's that? That's about 7 miles of shoreline. It's private, just for us. No one else can boat there. No one else can use boating there. And you're not allowed to boat in the national park itself. So all those camps that are there, you can kind of see it. And if you want to go fishing, you've got to walk and toss a line, which is not bad. But obviously, it's much easier if you can jump on a boat and be able to move in and out. The same for Chiquena. We've got a private area in Chiquena to be able to do boating. No one else does that close to the park. Chiquena, a little bit more modern. So concertina sliding doors, they do open, which is really nice. You wouldn't leave them open at night because a leopard or hyena will wander into your tent. So make sure that they close. It's a nice view in the morning. And look, Chiquena and Rukomichi, you can stay at both. It doesn't mean you have to choose one. They're very different in terms of terrain. They're about 30 miles, 35 miles from each other.
GraGra, that was actually going to be a question of mine. Would you recommend a stop in Rukomichi and Chiquena?
Hands down.
Yeah.
Particularly now, because we're seeing a lot more guests that are wanting to not jump across borders and countries because of PCR tests and moving. So people are saying, okay, let me do Zimbabwe, let me do it for 8, 9, 10 days. And I'm sure we'll get to Huangi just now. But you can actually spend 3 nights at Rukomichi, 3 nights at Chiquena and see totally different animals. Maybe do more game drives at Rukomichi and more boating and walking at Chiquena, for example. So you're not rushed. You don't have to only spend 3 or 4 nights in Mana and then move on.
Sure. I can vouch for the spa. It is superb, and it was very funny because I took a fam there with some advisors, and I came out very excited from my room, and I said, I just had a bath. I haven't bathed in 3 years, meaning about the Cape Town drought, and not that I actually haven't showered, but it was wonderful. It really was wonderful.
Nice.
So
That's
family
a
tents?
Family tents. So we've got 2 family tents, which is really nice there. The tents are all the tents are on elevated platforms. The family tents have each got their own plunge pool. And then we've also got a pool in the main area. The nice thing about those family tents is that the kids have got their own cordoned off area, and then it's 2-3 steps across, and you've got the parents. You can actually have a little bit of privacy, especially if you've got some older kids. They don't want to be under the same roof with mom and dad all the time.
Yeah, and then just some more activities. So there's so much to do in minor pools, right?
Yeah, so you can do basically everything except for hot air balloon. I see hot air balloons are considered safari activities these days. So you got the drives, you got the walking safaris, you got the canoes, and you got the boats, whether you want to do fishing or just sundownering. And that's why it's such a beautiful place where you can actually spend 5, 6, 7 nights. In fact, remember when I was chatting to you earlier, I was speaking to guests that were in Chiquena now. They've just spent 6 nights, and they're asking if they can spend a 7th night. But unfortunately, we've got more guests coming in tomorrow, so we don't have enough space there. So the manager's going to break the news soon. But it just shows after 6 nights, and they're just in one camp in Mana. I mean, you can probably spend 14 days and still be happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is this elephant doing, GraGra? I know there's some tasty morsels in our camps at certain times of the year.
So this elephant's name is Boswell, and the reason I know that's Boswell is for 2 reasons. So it's named after the circus elephant. He wasn't in a circus, but if you look around his neck, you can see that there's a belt. So that's actually a tracking device. So researchers can track him. And you can see how big his tusks are as well, which also gives him away, and just how he's in that crouched position. So he is a male elephant. What some of the male elephants have learned to do is to actually shift their weight and lean back a little bit, which pushes their trunk up. So when it starts to get dry and all the other elephants have eaten the lower hanging branches, Boswell, and there's 1 or 2 others that can do it as well, they'll lean back, stretch up, and they can still actually access. So it's he who's got the longest trunk and reach can actually get the freshest leaves.
And then they also go after the pods, don't they?
Yeah, so the not from that tree, but you get the different acacia trees.
Yeah.
And the anapods, and when the anapods fall, it's so nutritious for them. Obviously, with the dry season, some of the foliage, the leaves are drying up, but when the anapods fall, they can eat it. So sometimes the anapods will fall right at the base of your tent or onto the deck, and you'll be sleeping at night, and you'll just hear, like the heavy breathing of an elephant. And as he's scooping up the different pods, and the pods are almost like a little rattle. So to me, it's a soothing noise. Sometimes guests wake up and they don't know what's going on. It sounds like there's a baby outside of the rattle, but it's basically Boswell and his friends that are scooping up the anapods and then sticking them into their mouth before moving on.
Yeah. It's such an amazing place. I got stuck in the loo with a view. Luckily, it had a view for quite a while, much longer than I needed to be, because probably one of Boswell's friends was outside the view. So yeah, amazing place. And GraGra, tell us why we don't recommend self-drives, this being probably the one and only sign for I don't know how many kilometers.
Yeah, well, self-drives are really difficult. People can get lost in that. We also don't recommend driving between Rukomichi and Chiquena just because it is such a long drive. If you look at the map and you say, yeah, but Graham, that's 35 kilometers to Mana Pools and probably another 10, 15 onwards to think, it doesn't seem like a lot. But look at the roads, it's sandy roads. There are speed limits. There's also a lot of traffic in terms of warthogs, baboons, lions, elephants, buffalo and stuff. So it takes a really long time to go from one camp to the other. But we can connect you with the flights, because remember that each of those camps in Mana Pools have got their own little airstrip. So it's a 10-minute hop flying along the river, really special. Yeah.
And so from Mana Pools down to Huangi, and our lodge there, Lenkwasha. So
that picture was actually taken. That picture, sorry, if you go back, that picture was taken 3 or 4 days ago, actually.
Yes, it was. Sorry, actually, yes, I should have mentioned that. At the swimming pool, as the elephants love to come for the fresh water. Yeah, quite something special.
That's Liberty, the camp manager. That's him sitting there watching.
Yeah. I've had a fam having dinner there as well, and the elephants have joined us. It's beautiful. Absolutely incredible. I mean, there's advisors. There's no fence. There's no electricity strand hidden. There's nothing. It's just fresh air between you and wild animals. It's just the most important experience.
Important to note as well that the elephants don't have to drink from there. There is a lot of water behind.
Yes.
But some of them just choose. They just want to come and have a bit there. So we don't use a strong chlorine or anything like that, because they are going to drink from it. So, special place.
So GraGra, Lenkwasha, there's a couple of things that I really want to touch on and focus on more than just the phenomenal lodge that's there. And the first one is when I first saw this slide, I was like, okay, 80%, 86% airland, and I was like, 86% of what? And then I actually read the slide, and it says percentage of Huangi's, the entire national park population counted in our private concessions during the dry season. So can you just chat to us about the slide?
So that whole grey area you're seeing there, that's the outline of the national park. It's a large national park, Zimbabwe's largest national park, about 1.4 million hectares. We are in the southeastern corner, 2 concessions. So those are those circles or slash semicircles. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect there. And about 52,000, just over 52,000 hectares. Now, the interesting thing is we make about 3.6% of the land mass compared to the whole national park. So what makes us very significant, that 86% of eland, as we can see there, or 18% of elephant, or 30% of southern giraffe, are found within 3.6% of the national park. So you've got 86% of a population of a mammal species found in only 3.6. It's mind-blowing. What excites me the most is actually the blue wildebeest, because I know if we talk about East Africa, the wildebeest migration is massive. You know, you've got millions going there. So when we don't have millions of wildebeest, blue wildebeest in southern Africa. So I'm talking Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa. We don't have a lot of wildebeest. Historically, this would be a whole new presentation, but their natural migratory routes were cut off due to fences, due to roads, due to railways and stuff. So we actually saw a massive decrease in the population, which in itself, if you've got such a abundant species that was there before, you know, eating the grass and things like that, it does mean that they are very important to the area. So we're seeing an increase in the population, which is good. One of the reasons why we've got such good animals in that area, sorry, you might hear my dogs are scratching outside. One of the reasons why we got such good animals in that area is because of the terrain. It's not just the same bush that you'll find in the northern part where it's quite rocky and outcrops and things like that. Just, sorry, 1 second, you just shout at the dogs.
No problem.
Sorry, so you've got these open fields and things like that, which is really beautiful to see, and as well as the old dry riverbeds, as well as the teak forest and the like. So a really special place in that southeastern corner. These numbers are taken at the driest time of the year, so it's a game count. Why do they take it at the driest time of the year? Because the water holes are pumped at the dry time of the year. During the rainy season, you know, the rain comes from the top, it fills up all the puddles, fills up all the little riverbeds and stuff like that. Animals can drink wherever. We count at the driest time of the year because the animals have to come to a water hole to drink. So all the water holes in the Huangi National Park are populated with non-government, non-wilderness people. They guests that come in and they decide to do it. Some people have been doing it for 20, 30 years. And they count for 24 hours, usually taken over full moon and taken at the hottest time of the year, so generally around October or September. For 24 hours, they'll count every single animal throughout the park, and then at the end, they collate all the figures and they come out with the statistics that you can see out in front of you. Also, a big tip of the hat to the anti-poaching unit.
Sorry,
without them, you know, yeah.
Sorry, GraGra. Year on year, our animal figures have improved since for. I don't know when they started, but 2013, I think we had figures from, and they've just improved year on year, right?
Yes, yeah. So when we started collating, the national parks have got, you know, it goes back over 50 years. It is good to see that the percentage of African elephant in our little part of the park has decreased a little bit. Yeah, the previous one we had 30%. So people might say, oh, but that's crazy. It's not. It's actually a good thing because you need more elephants to move out and into the park where they feel safer, because elephants can be quite destructive if they stay in one part. So still having 18% of, you know, 42,000 odd elephant is still a large portion. I can guarantee you, I'll put my head on the chopping block. If you can bring a famil with your advisors in September, October, we can go out on 2 game drives, and if we don't see more than 1,000 elephants, I'll pay first class tickets for everyone back to where they're going, and first class tickets back again. Yeah, I guarantee it.
Okay, we can have a deal there.
It's a deal. So September, October, we go in 2 drives, and you have to count the elephants, because I mean, I've never lost this bet. The only thing is you're not allowed to close your eyes and drive, because someone did that. They said, don't worry, Graham, and they sat in the vehicle like this with their eyes closed. I said, no, that's cheating. You can still see the elephants.
Yeah, cool.
No, it's a beautiful part.
We did briefly mention the anti-poaching unit in our module with Neil, but yeah, phenomenal figures there for last year.
Yeah, and you know, since with Corona, when we were closed, you know, Arnold, who's our environmentalist for the region, he always uses the cookie jar metaphor. So you know, if you're at your grandma's house and there's a cookie jar, if no one's watching it, you know, the cousins and uncles and aunts are all away, you can sneak in and you can put your hand in the cookie jar. And that's kind of what could happen in if we didn't have, you know, guests coming, if we didn't have the anti-poaching, if we didn't have staff moving to the airstrip and back. You know, it's easy for people to sneak into that area and be naughty. So hands in the cookie jar. When you've got lots of people watching the cookie jar, whether it's a guest, a camp manager, a staff member, a pilot checking on his plane, etc., the anti-poaching, you know, means it's harder. So the more eyes we have, the better. Last year we didn't have many eyes because of Corona, but yeah, the anti-poaching unit stepped up and did really, really well.
Absolutely, absolutely, very vital importance. And GraGra, I love this slide. It's not our high season and low season according to Lodge, but more according to weather. Just talk
Mother
us
Nature.
through the different, Mother Nature. Talk us through the slides.
Perfect. So the first thing you might notice is a question mark. If you're like me, who gets drawn to typos and stuff, and the question mark isn't a typo. Basically, the rainy season does change a little bit. It can be November and it can be December. So last rainy season happened more in December. Previous to that was November. So that question mark is just a bit of a thing. So between November and April, which is one of the longest periods, we actually have our green season. And if you can see where the giraffe are, and then down below, you've got the eland and the impala. That's the Ingamo Plains. One of the reasons why that area is so special. And we have high concentration of prey species like the wildebeest we chatted about, like the giraffe, like the zebra. That area, if you draw your attention to the bottom right, that's the same area that you're seeing in August to November when it's really dry. And then if you go back to the green season, you can see the grass. So when it's really dry, it looks like there's nothing ever going to live there again. It looks like the moon, there's water, animals come to drink, and then they carry on. But when the rain comes, give it 2 weeks, and suddenly this fresh grass starts to shoot up. What happens with that grass is animals know, particularly the browsers, so we're talking once again about the eland, the impala, and then the grazers like the buffalo and the wildebeest, they'll start to come because they know that with that fresh grass they're going to eat. When they have their babies, it's all in sync. Mother Nature's really clever. The baby's going to be able to drink from mom. Mom is eating a healthy diet, and she can feed the baby really well. The baby can run. Secondly, it's such an open place, and all the babies can come together in what we call a creche. You can see some baby impala there in the bottom left of your screen. It means there's more eyes and ears and safety in numbers. So when the cheetah does come, and a cheetah will come, we'll be able to, the cheetah will take one baby, but maybe the 50, 70, 80 other babies will be able to survive. And that's how their population can increase. Many people say, the impala, you know, it's boring to look at because there's so many of it. But it's one of if you think about the size of it and how many there are, it's one of the most amazing species to be able to survive in such harsh terrains, whether it's food, drink, or being eaten by lots of different animals.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then mid-season, May to July, that's kind of when the rains have stopped. So I'll rush it. Kind of when the rains have stopped, but the water holes are still holding. And then when we get to dry season, there's no more rain. So the water is really dropping. Most of the animals that we come to see in Africa are same as you and me. We are mammals. If we get dropped off on a deserted island, we can survive long if we have water, and we can survive long if we don't have that much food. If it was the other way around and we had lots of food but no water, we would perish quite quickly. Same with these guys. They'll eat what they can find, but they need to drink. So they come down to these water holes. You can see like in their hundreds and hundreds of buffalo and their thousands of elephants, different herds. And the lions and the predators know that those animals are going to come there because some of the animals are a bit older. They haven't been able to eat a lot. They might be feeling a little bit sick or old age. They're a bit weaker. Now is when the lions can hunt. So those lions that you can see, they actually killed 3 buffalo in one afternoon. They didn't eat them all, but they were just so excited. People say, oh, shame, it's not fair. But if you think about from November all the way through to July, that's when the prey species are at the best. They've got green grass, lots of place to hide. Everyone's fit and healthy. Lions and predators have to work really hard to get their food. Come August up till the end of November, that's when the lions can start to thrive. So everyone has their turn.
Sure. And I mean, this is a perfect example of why I would recommend to my advisors that it's, and Zimbabwe is an all year round destination for a safari. Talking of those cheetah, this was one of my photos in March, and epic fam trip with our Olympus cameras that are in most of our premier lodges for your clients to utilize. GraGra, Sunken Hide at Linkwasha. really amazing place to view wildlife. You're at eye level, and I imagine the camp will do private dining or a dinner if clients would like to.
Yeah, if they want to, they can do it. Obviously, when it's dark, it's quite hard to see. So generally, sundowners are nice there. Dinners, we can arrange it. It's but it is a little bit trickier. Beautiful. It's right in front of the lodge, so a guide will walk you there. You actually access it through the top through a hatch, and then we open the drop down, so it's all nice and safe. And you'll get a lot of the aquatic birds coming in. They're always around. So you get the animals in the early mornings, late afternoons coming to drink, or even throughout the day. We get a lot of guests that don't want a siesta. They take their laptop. You don't have Wi-Fi in there because it's set away from the camp, but what you can do is download your mails in your room. Then you can go and sit at the sunken hide, and you can have your camera there, and you can have some coffee. There's a fridge inside, and you can do your emails, and you look at the animals around you, and then afterwards you can pack it up, go back to the Wi-Fi's area, and they'll be able to send the emails. Linkwasha, beautiful camp, large rooms, different to Little Mac and Davison's in terms of you've got more amenities. So you've got a bar, you've got a hair dryer, you've got a coffee station, and much bigger rooms, so to speak. And all this picture always, I love looking at it because it just reminds us that the camps are all unfenced. So you can have wild dog running through. You can have, I've seen lion coming through. I've seen cheetah coming through. Only thing I haven't had come onto my deck there is leopard, but they definitely come at night. They're a little bit more secretive, though, of course.
Yeah, it is phenomenal that experience of being so close to nature and not having any fences, and that they're just so relaxed to come so close to humans. That always amazes me.
Yeah. And that's because of the private concessions, Al. That's why it's so important to have the private concessions, because you don't have, every Tom, Dick, and Harry driving in or trying to squeeze in front, or maybe pushing the hooter or throwing something at the animals. The guides, they are trained in such a way that they respect the animals, and the animals eventually, I know it sounds crazy, but respect back again. They don't see the vehicles as a threat. Guides are always on a walking safari, will be armed, of course, because animals are animals and are wild. But yeah, Huangi, one of the best places to take a professional guide from Zimbabwe and to go on a walking safari. You can spend a whole afternoon walking around a waterhole or just on the outskirts of camp, because there's so much information there. If you have guests and clients that want to just learn how the grass is impacted by the caterpillar, how the caterpillar impacts the bird, and it just goes on and on. I mean, the circle of life, I'll break out into a Lion King song now if you want, but the circle of life is actually closer than we think. We often think about the bigger animals, the lions feeding on this and that, but it all starts with a termite that you might not even pay attention to. And the Zimbabwean guides, arguably the best guides in the world, the training they have to go through, many years of practice, of learning, failures. You never get someone who just generally passes the first time. They fail, and they come back stronger. There's a certain number of professional guides throughout the history that have been qualified. It's not in the thousands; they're in the low hundreds. It's an amazing achievement if you can become a professional guide in Zimbabwe.
GraGra, just tell the advisors a little bit about our Huangi walking safari. And I don't think many advisors, or some advisors, might not know that we actually have the opportunity for clients to do a walking safari, which is very, very, very different from your normal FIT or orchestrated itinerary that we put together.
So the walking safari is a little bit more on the wild side. So what happens is you go to 4 nights in Huangi. So the first night, the first night is you are going to Davison's, our entry-level camp. Beautiful little camp. You meet your guide, meet the other guests. So if you're a private group, you obviously know each other, or we hope you know each other if you're in a private group. And then the second and the third night, actually set up a fly camp in the Ingamo Plains. So you'll drive the vehicle there, because you always have a vehicle for safety. And then the fly camp will be set up. You've got bucket showers outside. You've got a fire going. You've got nice, comfortable, and warm tents. And that will be your home for 2 nights. You always will have your room back at Davison's if anything happens. If a guest feels sick, if the weather suddenly turns really crazy, or a guest feels uncomfortable, you'll always have your room back in Davison's for those 2 nights. From there, because you're spending 2 nights, you'll wake up, the guide will have his rifle, and you'll go for a walking safari. Or if they hear there's certain animals at a distance, you can jump in the vehicle, drive a bit, and then walk back to camp. Just totally depends. The guide will speak to your guests how they want to do it. you're spending 2 nights out in the wild under the stars. Remember, there's no light pollution. We are so far away from any town of significance that if you were there right now, it's dark. You could lie on your back and you've basically got a carpet of stars from one end to the other end. It's crazy how your eyes adjust. We actually forget how we've got light pollution wherever we are. So you spend 2 beautiful nights there doing the odd walking safari, roasting marshmallows, nice food and a cooked fire and that. And then your last night, 4th night afterwards, you go back to Linkwasha for a little bit of glam and bigger rooms. If you want to do your hair again or jump into a normal shower, swimming pools, etc., you've all got that. So it's a nice 4-night itinerary. First night Davison's, 2 nights under the stars, and then your 4th night, pardon me, will be at Linkwasha before making your way on.
Cool. And then just lastly, another amazing activity that one can do at Linkwasha is our cultural element.
So the Ingamo Village is situated about 2 hours drive from the camps, if you're on a game drive, and it's a beautiful village, very well kept, very proud people, and a lot of our staff come from the village. We also support the school system there and the healthcare system there by sinking boreholes, allowing them for water so that they can grow food. And then in Zimbabwe, as crazy as it sounds, but many kids would go to school. Parents would send their kids to school just because they can get a meal. It's education is secondary, but obviously in the long run, the education counts for a lot more. So by having water and having sponsorship there, we can actually provide kids with meals, and then we attract more kids. This here is actually a ladies only initiative. So all these ladies over here are the ones that have collected recycled rubbish. So a lot of recycled stuff, cans, packets from our camps, we wash and clean and we provide it to them. They then use a reed, they collect the reeds themselves, and they weave these intricate, amazing baskets. I mean, you can see the different colors on the bottom there, but that's all made out of reed and recycled plastic.
And recycled plastic, yeah.
To be part of this clique, as I'll call them for lack of a better word, is if you're not allowed to be looking after a child. So some of these ladies would be grannies, grandparents, and they'll be looking after school-age children because maybe the mother passed away, or just culturally maybe the mother's in the city, but the school child will be living with the grandmother. So you're not allowed to have a school child out of school for financial reasons if you belong to this consortium of ladies. But what we do here is we sell these wares to our guests as well as export on behalf of the ladies. We don't make any markup or charge any commission on it. They get all the money, and then the first money that goes in pays for the school fees to the village school, and then afterwards they're allowed to keep a profit. So they can't be part of this and just be making a profit while their daughter and their sons or granddaughter and grandsons or nieces and nephews are not allowed to go to school. So it really is an amazing initiative.
Amazing. Yeah. We also with Neil, we touched on the men that have joined with the glass crushing and
bricks and things,
incredible. So let's have a look at, let me open the questions box, see if we have any questions, and then we can take it from there. Just go through. Apologies, those are all the.
I can hear, I can hear. So here we go.
Can you hear me? No, I can't.
Hey, Kathy, sorry, I've only seen the question box now, so there we go.
Oh, can you see it, GraGra? Awesome.
Yeah,
so
I've got it now.
Can clients enter Zambia from Joburg without quarantine this summer?
Yes, so there was a bit of confusion, a lot of confusion. Our beloved governments come up with things and they don't proofread it, and then it causes a lot of confusion. So Zambia came up with a red list, a naughty list as I like to call it, and that's where they have countries that they feel are quite high up in the worrisome for corona. So for example, India is on that red list, and India you'd have to go into quarantine, specifically India. Then you've got other countries besides India that are on the red list. South Africa is one of them. The USA is not one of them. but places like Germany and France are. So let's just say your guests are going to Cape Town for a week, and then they're going from South Africa into Zambia. How it works now is that your guests will land at the airport because they've been through a red list country. They don't have to quarantine, but what they will have to do is they'll get swabbed again. This is how it works currently. They get swabbed again. They get sent on their ways. They are then checking to see if you do have obviously coronavirus. Now, most guests, firstly, to get into Zambia, have to have a negative PCR test. And because of that, they generally are in the clear. But Zambia are just being double careful and swabbing you again, then sending you on your way, and they'll contact you later and say, listen, you are positive or negative. It's just a way for them to control a little bit more.
Right. Cool. Busanga Plains, in any way comparable to Serengeti ecosystem? Absolutely.
Very different. Yeah, very different. So yes, it's an open plain, but the Serengeti is a little bit drier with different rainy seasons. You get 2 rainy seasons happening there in the Serengeti and Mara, whereas the Busanga Plains is a flood system. So once a year, the heavy rains come in, that whole Kafue River will flood, and then the water starts to recede again. So at certain times of the year, that's why we can only actually operate from the 1st of June until the beginning of the rainy season in the 1st of November. It's because when it's raining, you actually can't access it. It's just muddy in that. Whereas if you think about Serengeti and Masai Mara, sorry, you can actually access it throughout the year. It doesn't get as flooded.
Sure. Sorry, I was thinking about Ingamo Plains. I always like to call it a little Serengeti. But
yeah, it is a little, yeah.
Okay, do you have a preference season? Gorgeous green season, but so many ellies in dry season, plus lion activity.
I'll be honest with you, anytime I'm in the bush is my best time to be in the bush. Things do change. So if you know your guests and if you know your clients, just figure out what they want. We get a lot of photographers that'll come through and they'll chat to me and say, what's the best time? If you're wanting to see action, the dry season is really good because that's when as mentioned, those large herds of buffalo and elephant are coming to the waterholes, and then the lions and the leopard and the hyena and the wild dog kind of know that, so they hang around the waterholes because they need to drink as well, but they know that the food buffet is coming. It's like a sushi, the sushi when it comes round and round. So they wait there and they can pick them off. But remember, it's dry season, so it's a lot of dust. You don't have that beautiful contrast of the blue sky to the green grass to the sunsets. So it's a little bit flatter and harder to see. But you are seeing amazing dust density and drama in Huangi, for example. In the Kafue, it's only 5 months of the year. If you come in June and July, it's still quite wet, so you can do a bit of boating. The road network's not as intricate because a lot of the roads are underwater. To me, I love it because you can get so up close to hippos there, it's ridiculous. But if you come in, say, August, beginning of September, you've kind of got that nice medium where you've got still a little bit of water. So you've got the deeper channels, but you also got the dry areas where you can access on the roads and get up close and personal with the lions and watch the lions jump over. October comes again. It's quite hot, quite dry, but it's amazing because the last remaining water in the Kafue, in the Busanga Plains, is right in the center. So all the animals, you're getting the Liechtenstein's hartebeest, you're getting the wildebeest, you're getting the sesame, you're getting the eland, you're getting the kudu, you're getting the roan, you're getting the sable. You can get 22 different species of antelope. They're all going onto the plains in this wide open area. And what that does, once again, if you're a lion, you can take your pick, whichever one you want to eat, because it's such an open area, you can just run them down.
For sure. Thanks, GraGra. What is current international air like getting to Zim? Very good, I think.
It is good. It's increasing. Sorry?
The different options.
Yeah, different options. So Kenya Airways is starting again. So if you've got guests coming in from Nairobi, because I know Nairobi to the US, you can connect, which is quite nice. So Kenya Airways will fly into Victoria Falls. We've also got Ethiopian Airlines. So if you've got guests flying from Addis will go anywhere in the world, and a really great airline as well. They fly into Victoria Falls. We then have the routes from Johannesburg. So you can also fly in from Johannesburg on a regional carrier called FastJet, or you can use Comair now. And then we've also got the Cape Town link. So Kenyan Airways would do Nairobi, Victoria Falls, Cape Town, and then back again. And we've also got Airlink that currently offers it. So as we're opening up more and more coming, it's one of those chicken and egg things where we need a lot more guests because then more airlines are flying. Nice thing. I'd also like to just touch on there for Zimbabwe, for example. I've received my 2 shots of vaccine.
Yeah.
most of the tourism industry have received it already. And on the CDC guidelines, we actually are down onto level 2, which is quite nice. So I think 4 is a no-go. 3 is like, you can choose, but 2 is like, go if you want. Number 1 is, run around as free as you like. So yeah, and there is no quarantine in Zimbabwe. Again,
Right.
Zambia had their SI that came out and caused confusion with red list countries. Zimbabwe had an SI that people misinterpreted and thought they had to quarantine. There's no quarantine in Zimbabwe. As long as you arrive with a negative PCR test with a stipulated time, you're not coughing and spluttering, and you've got a temperature of 38 or 100 and whatnot Fahrenheit, welcome arms, off you come as you wish. Obviously, wear masks.
Sorry, I don't know if you mentioned. I know Zambia. If you've had both vaccines and you have your vaccine certificate, then you don't have to quarantine, correct?
So yeah, if you've had Johnson and Johnson, one jab and done, you're also fine. So it's obviously for each vaccine you have to be fully vaccinated. Johnson is 1 jab and done. Obviously Pfizer, BioNTech, AstraZeneca, it's two jabs at stipulated time. So if you've got your vaccine passport, there's no red list country to them. They won't swab you again, even if you are living in South Africa and you come up and you've got your 2 vaccines. Open arms, welcome, come.
Yeah, cool. Describe a day for guests to visit Ingamo Village with transportation, food, etc. So just an outline of the day.
Yeah, so I'll run it quickly. Wake up, have something to eat, and then you'll jump in a vehicle. It's quite a nice game drive. You go out to the Ingamo Plains, and then you cross over into the more of the civilized area where there's people and farmlands and stuff, which is across the railway tracks. And then you will you'll meet the headman, because there's always there's courtesy. You don't just drive into someone's village and walk around there. You go and you meet the headman, so he'll chat and explain to you what he does and how a village life works. It's really neat, because you go into his little rondavel area and you'll meet his wife, and there'll be some chickens walking around, and a cat and dog will come and say hello to you. I really love it.
Yeah, likewise.
And then you'll go and you'll visit the school. Obviously just try and make sure that it's not on a Sunday or Saturday. No school kid wants to come and say hello to you on a Saturday or Sunday. They're all playing soccer or fishing or running around. And then you can also you'll meet the ladies, the ladies that we saw who do the weaving, the gents that are doing the glass crushing. And you can also you spend time, obviously a lot more time. You can spend time in the school as well. They don't use the same classes, because it wouldn't be fair if guest A went today and guest B went to tomorrow and the guest C went the next day. If they use the same class, it's different. So you do get to see different classes. Sometimes you get the really teeny kids. I really enjoy them, because they're so petrified of you at the beginning, and then afterwards they're just like all up in your personal space, and they're asking questions. Where are you from? What do you do? America, I heard of America. Do you know Rambo? Because they've maybe watched an old Rambo movie or something like that. So yeah, it's very special. Very special.
Yeah, we did a visit to Ingamo with a fam trip, and one of my agents said obviously you don't know where you're going when you leave Hwange National Park, and you're in the middle of nowhere on this gravel road heading out into Zimbabwe, and yet it's safe and it's secure, and the people are so friendly, and it's an incredible experience, incredible cultural diversity to see, and get to see how a different culture lives. Really, really fascinating.
It ties in the conservation as well, because I cut my teeth in Botswana. I love their conservation aspect, but that's more in the middle of nowhere, prime real estate. That's it. Zimbabwe's different, larger population, so you've got more human wildlife conflict happening. And if you can't marry the human population living in harmony with the wildlife population, even if it's on the fringes of a national park, you're never going to win the conservation battle. Humans are always going to come first, clever, smarter. We need more food. We need cloud fields. So we kind of it's as much us benefiting from them culturally by speaking to them, but it's also them seeing how conservation can work and how important the animals are, that guests are going to travel to this area to see the animals and also speak to the village head in that.
Absolutely. GraGra, I'm sure, I doubt you'll know this, but any chance Zim will extend the 48-hour PCR test.
So we're busy fighting with our Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Health, and they interpret different to us. So the 48 hours, okay, let's pause there. So South Africa 72 hours, Namibia 72 hours, all those places 72 hours. That's you basically you get your results in hand and you've got 72 hours to get to that country. Okay.
Right.
Zim, we worded it differently. I don't know why they did it that way, but anyway, when you speak to the minister, he says no. If you read the wording, it says that you have to have a negative, PCR test within 48 hours of departing your country. So let's say on Monday morning you have your negative PCR test, you wait 24 hours and you leave New York or the West Coast, LA, you leave LA on the Tuesday, so 24 hours later, and it takes you 48 hours to get to Zimbabwe. So that's a total of 72 hours. The minister is still saying that's possible because you have to have your PCR test within 48 hours of leaving to come to Zimbabwe, not getting to Zimbabwe. So it's departure and arrival. The problem is they threw a little curveball in there and they said, but if you enter another country, so like South Africa and Johannesburg, and you spend the night, then they say they started again because you're now in another country. You haven't taken 48 hours to get to Zimbabwe. You haven't done it within 48 hours of departing your country. You've spent time in South Africa. So now South Africa is the country you're departing to get to Zimbabwe. So you need to make sure you've done it between 48 hours there. So there is a little caveat that you can jump through. I know it's confusing, but maybe Rochelle, we can chat offline or a little bit more about it.
Cool.
I wish they would just change it to 72 hours because then everyone in the region is the same.
Then everybody, it would be great if everybody was the same. Do you need to travel with the vaccine card or is a copy okay? Do you know, GraGra?
A copy will be fine as far as I understand it, as long as it looks legit and it's not smudged and folded and got someone else's passport photo on it, then they're going to be a little bit suspicious. Remember that vaccination is by no means a necessity to get into any of the countries we've been chatting about, but it does help, particularly if you're on a red list country. There. Even if we are vaccinated, we can still be carrying corona. It won't affect us as much as if we were unvaccinated. So that's why the countries are still saying, okay, you've been vaccinated, but you still have to have that negative PCR test to enter because you might have a very mild portion of it. But if you cough on someone who hasn't been fortunate enough to be vaccinated or whatever it is, they might catch it in a much more severe form. So that's why you have to.
Yeah. Cool. And I think that's a wrap. Those are all the questions that I saw for now. GraGra, thank you so much for joining me again. And
my pleasure. Thank you.
Apologies for the start of the webinar. And I'm going to speak to Carl. I'm going to blame Carl. He's in our marketing department. And we will send the links to the videos in the follow-up recording. So you won't miss out on them there. Thank you so much and have a great evening in Vic Falls, GraGra.
Thanks very much, Al. And if you could just connect me with Rochelle, or I think she's got more questions just about the COVID stuff, so it might be easier for me to explain it. And anyone else, please feel free to send through the questions. And thank you for listening to me chat about my little piece of paradise that I'm fortunate enough to call home.
Indeed. Thank you, GraGra. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience. Bye-bye.